Good afternoon. I had to check my watch. We are into the afternoon already, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Rhoda Roberts again, and she's done some epic interviews here in the last couple of days, and I was privileged to MC for her earlier in the week. In case any of you don't know, she's comes from a very politically active family. She's originally, before she became a total legend in the whole performance arts, she was a nurse. She did her training both in Australia and in London. But she got her AO for the Distinguished Services to the Performing Arts. What she doesn't know about performance, I mean, she's a journalist, a broadcaster, an actor, a producer, a writer, an arts advisor and director. She has a very long history with Woodfordia and the festival, but she's also involved in festivals in Alice Springs and Cairns and Byron Bay. She's SBS's Elder in Residence. She's a First Nations teacher for, the first First Nations teacher for NIDA. She's now the lead CEO for the Courier Mail, not to be confused with the Courier Mail, and she does epic interviews. And today she's going to be interviewing Dan Sultan, and I'm not going to steal her thunder as to the information she's going to draw out from him, but he said he'd like to be introduced as a father, a husband, and an artist. So Rhoda Roberts, or Auntie Rhoda, and Dan Sultan, you're very, very welcome. A big, rousing welcome for them. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Gosh, it's lovely to see a full room. Thank you on this very hot Woodford day for joining us in conversation with Arunta Gurindji man, Dan Sultan.
Hello.
And Dan, of course, will be performing later tonight, and we'll give you some information at the end. Before we start, I, as a Widjabul Wyabul woman from the Bundjalung territories of northern New South Wales, southeast Queensland, would like to acknowledge, as our Aboriginal cultural protocol dictates, to acknowledge the lands, the ancestral lands of the traditional owners known as the Jinibara of this region. And I did ask a question yesterday, does anyone know what Jinibara actually means? Yes, it's the lawyer, congratulations, if I had $60,000, beep. Jinibara are the people, Bara is people, and Jinna, of course, is the lawyer vine. And so we are on these incredible lands, and we acknowledge what they do here, particularly at Woodford. So Jumbana Balagamir, Naliba Garama Ba, Jinabara. Juwaji Jiha Jugima Bugube. And we will pay our respects and continue to pay our respects to the rightful owners of country across this incredible nation. Thank you. So, let's kick off with Dan. And I'm going to go a little way back because I can remember a time of seeing Dan with this incredible band that had virtually every instrument. It was in Melbourne. I saw them in a pub, and there was accordion. I love the accordion. And then one of Dan's colleagues took me to see it, and it was an amazing, amazing show. And at the time, we invited you to come to the Dreaming Festival. Do you remember that first gig?
The Dreaming? Yeah, I do, yeah. I don't remember the one that you saw me in Melbourne with the accordion, but that's neither here. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. But,
it did happen, but I didn't go up and gush. I just went, okay, I'll find his manager and book him.
I'm just wondering who played the accordion. Might have been Gina. I had an amazing keyboard player back then who played anything with keys, and still does. But, yeah.
And that first Dreaming festival, Dan came out on stage and literally, he didn't even sing a note. The crowd went wild. I think it was because of the head of hair. And all of a sudden, people started saying, "Oh my God, he's like a black Elvis." Did you ever hear that?
I have heard that before. I love Elvis, so I take it as a compliment. But I don't read into it too much.
It was really the compliment about the good looks, I think.
Right.
And the way that you moved your hips, I think might have been it. But since those early days, gosh, Dan, I was looking up all the awards you've won and been nominated for. And I could do the list, but there's just so many. But Deadlies, Arias, APRAs, Victoria Music, J Awards, and the list just goes on. But I want to ask you, because often we hear about people being nominated or being given awards, and how does that make you feel? From your peers and colleagues recognising your talent and what you bring to the industry?
It makes me feel good. It does. It's not why I do what I do, but to receive acknowledgement in that way, I find it to be very affirming, because it's such a weird thing to be. I suppose a lot of things are weird, but to be an artist and to be working is such a strange thing. You wake up and you're compelled. You're passionate to do it, and it is your passion. It's not something that I like all the time, but it's something that I always love. You know, it's not a choice, it's a compulsion. So you're compelled to do it. You wake up, you've got an idea, you collaborate, you see the idea through, and then you have people with you, working with you to help present it to the world, and it's strange, you know. Oh, I think people will like this, and you do it. And I feel very fortunate enough that there have been enough people that have enjoyed it for a long time now. And then to receive an accolade, you know, to be nominated, it's a bit of a cliche, but that is the win, really. If you are lucky enough to win, the only difference really for me anyway is having the opportunity to say some things publicly and to thank some people and acknowledge some people, you know, that you otherwise wouldn't get to do so within that space on that night, you know. So that's a nice thing. But, you know, for instance, with an ARIA nomination, there's usually 4 or 5 people that you share the nomination with, and that's saying that you're in the view of the people that have voted for that and put you up for that, what you've done in the last 12 months is within the top 5 of, you know. That being said, there's always a lot of incredible, beautiful work that doesn't get nominated. So, you know, it's not something to be taken too seriously either, you know, when it all comes down to it. But the fact that there is that acknowledgement, I really like that. And then when you actually win, it's a nice opportunity to say thanks, you know.
So you've won industry awards like the ARIAs, but you've also won industry awards within the Indigenous sector, such as Deadlies and NEMAs. Is there a difference when you get nominated or win one of those categories?
Look, it's a good question. I try not to read into, you know, awards too much anyway. I think being First Nations, you know, I feel like that we're put on a bit of a pedestal by the greater community and, you know, by society. And so we do something great and we're seen as magical and mystical as opposed to just being talented and hardworking. This isn't all the time, but I find this sometimes. And when we do something wrong, we're seen as dangerous and we're demonised. You know, we're sort of, you got to be twice as good to get half the recognition, and half as I don't want to say bad, but you know, half as not so good to get twice the condemnation. You know, so I feel like that there's been a lot of, I feel like, you know, to put us all in one place, you and I are both First Nations. You're from just south of here, I'm from Central Australia. You know, there are people in Belgium and people in England who are more closely related than you and I are, and more culturally similar than you and I are. That being said, for an awards ceremony like the Deadlies used to be, and like the Nemas are now, receiving that acknowledgement again and that recognition from a particular part of our society and our greater community, and one that we can identify with, you know, on a lot of different levels. It's a nice thing, you know. I mean, I've felt this from time to time, and I think it's pretty common for a lot of First Nations people to feel this. There's a lot of pain and there's a lot of hurt, and when you have generations upon generations of really hard living and hard lives, it's people talk about transgenerational trauma and intergenerational trauma. That's not genetics. That is behaviour that's being passed down, and that you know, it can make for a very hard place to be as a First Nations person. People within their own families sometimes, and then, you know, within the industry as well. So I certainly don't take any of it for granted. But at the same time, I like to keep things relatively simple, and I see myself as and everybody as an individual. You know, I've said it my whole career, and I don't know whether people have fully understand it or not. I know they didn't when I started, and they probably don't now. Some people might, but I'm not an Aboriginal musician. I'm a musician. I don't even like saying I'm a musician. I'm an artist, you know.
Well, you're an artist.
I happen to be Aboriginal, and I know where I'm from.
Yes.
You know, I'm Eastern Islander, and I'm Gurindji in Central Australia. On my mother's side, my father is Irish descent. My mother's side also has Afghani descent. My wife is Chinese and Welsh, so my kids are fucking awesome. You know what I mean?
Beautiful.
That's what it is.
They are incredibly beautiful. Touching on Eastern Arunta.
I think I'll just finish, but I think when you talk about genres of music or genres of people or anything like that, it's a way of, as people, we're storytellers and we want to communicate, and it's such an instinct for us. So I certainly understand where those things come from. But I think to read into things like that any more than just seeing it as a way to speak about something with respect and with peace and humility, you know, that's really important. But to see it as anything more than that, all black fellas like country music, all black fellas are this, all black fellas are that. You know, there's a lot of stuff. This is the pedestal stuff. There's a lot of stuff gets said coming from a place of trying to say something nice, but it's the same. But it's coming from the same place as when people have said things that aren't so nice. And you de-individualise somebody and you dehumanise somebody, then, you know, some pretty horrendous and awful things happen to us and have been happening for a long time and are continuing to happen with that mindset. So I don't really read into it too much whether someone's trying to say something positive or whether someone's trying to say something negative. I've done interviews where people are trying to get me to say, you know, they say, who are your musical influences? And I'll say Roy Orbison, And they'll say, oh, how was Archie Roach? And it's like, Uncle Archie and I knew each other for 20 years, and he's absolutely an influence on me, not just musically, but as a father, as a family person, as a peaceful, beautiful spirit, absolutely. But if I've got some non-First Nations person or a white person coming to me and wanting me to and trying to steer my words to get me to speak about, to get their sound grab, black fella talking about a black fella, oh yeah, then I just say Roy Orbison, and both are true, yeah. Uncle Arch and Uncle Roy, so I'm a bit, and that's just part of my personality too. I know when I don't do this with everybody. We've known each other a long time, and there's a lot of trust there. And I know when people think that they're smarter than me and they're trying to lead me somewhere, and I shut it down pretty quickly. Anyway, the nice chirpy beginning to the
that was really good, and you
to the conversation.
You touched on a few things that I'd like to expand on. We have an incredible history in Australia, and one of the great histories is the way that many people who have arrived in this country immediately recognise the beauty of Aboriginal women and intermarried. And there's some extraordinary stories. So Dan Sultan, the Sultan name, from Eastern Arunta, but when you mention the Afghan, Australians don't realise there were what were labelled cameleers. And they arrived in Australia from Turkey, Afghanistan, what is now known as Pakistan, India, and so forth. And they started in Western New South Wales. And if you go to some of the missions in Western New South Wales, there are family groups whose grandfather was Afghan or Turkey, but they followed Islam. And so on those missions, you'll see a mosque, and you'll still meet aunties who are like the typical black auntie, watching you, telling everything, but then they'll go out and do their five prayers a day. And people don't realise that. And then you go from Western New South Wales across into South Australia and up to Mbantua, Alice Springs, and all the way along. There are all these family groups because the country resembled where they were from. They were ostracised. There were Ghan camps. Of course, the big train that was named after those towns, those Ghan towns. But the most incredible thing, they brought communications to Australia because the others couldn't do it, but the camels could travel across that terrain, and along the way, they met Aboriginal women and naturally fell in love with them and had these families. And it's quite an extraordinary history, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of that history and that combination. And one of the big families, of course, is the Sultans. How do you feel about carrying that heritage and history?
I think it's great. I've always, it's just been part of my story and my family's story, and I've known it for as long as I've known anything. And there's the first mosque built in Australia is at Marlborough, or close to. I think I'm right there, Marlborough.
Yeah, you are.
And it was built out of mud, and mud bricks, and you go past it on the Ghan, and that was built by. Pretty sure my family. There were sultans. There are a lot of sultans who I wasn't related to, because sultan's a very big name. There's a sultan's curry van out here, actually.
Not related.
And I've been there was a few years, with Dreaming and Woodford. I've gone up towards the end of the night. Probably, and they might have given me a few samosas. So it's a big name. No, but I feel very proud of it, and I think it's really interesting,
Yeah.
And I've thought about a story. I'm sure that because a lot of people went back with their families. And I just wonder if there were any Central Australian, Aranda, Eastern, Western Aranda, Western New South Wales descendants on boats trying to come back at one point over the last 10, 20 years.
We have heard some stories.
I'm writing a story about that, so if I see a movie come out about it, I'm coming for you. All right? But yeah, no, it's an interesting. I think it's fascinating. I've been very fortunate to travel quite a bit. Never enough. I'd love to travel more, and I will, and show my kids things, and it's a great ride. It's fascinating.
And you also mentioned intergenerational trauma, and you talked about the pain, and often we hear that in your lyrics, but many years ago it brought me, I'm tearing, I could tear up now. You wrote a song called Rosalind, and it's part of our history, and it's your mother. When you wrote that song, how was that for you to write a song about her story?
Well, very, very cathartic. I'm still learning that story, and I don't mean the history. I mean myself and my family, and I'm still learning what that all means for me as an individual and as a dad now. It's hard, last year with the overwhelming rejection of our acknowledgement as humans in this country, there are people that have kids my daughter's age who spoke about how they were talking to their kids about it, and that's not something I'm going to do. There's a chip that comes on our shoulder, and it can weigh us down, and it can destroy people. And I'm just trying so hard to just prolong that inevitable, disgusting, vulgar chip for my kids. But I know it's, and they're strong, and I know that they'll be okay. But it's something that I'm just learning about. I learn about every day, I'm glad I wrote the song. I'm glad that the song exists, or that the song chose me to sing it. I had a bit of help. I should mention Scott Wilson, who I used to work with at the time. He helped me a little bit with that song. But it is a song for my family and myself. And the thing is, it's a very common story with our people. So it's a song. That's the thing. It can be, once you write the song, it goes and it becomes. I've written songs about being a pretty average boyfriend with a broken heart, and someone will go, "That's my wedding song," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," but it's totally valid. That's the beautiful thing about good art, I find, is that you can look at it on the surface superficially, not in a negative way either, but and it can be something that's pleasing, and then you can just dig and dig and deep, and you can dig and dig and deeply and deeply and deeply, and it's just never ending, So it's I felt like I was like any of my songs, I was a vehicle for that song, and I was very proud to be that vehicle and take it on, But writing any song, I find very cathartic, and I feel very fortunate, because I've been through a lot, and I feel very fortunate that I'm able to write and process things in that way.
Have you found, I don't know if many people realise what that particular October Sunday last year was for many in our communities, particularly some of our older wisdom holders and knowledge keepers, who every decade we see a similar voice asking for equity, and just an understanding that our kinship system is very different to any other. There are some similarities, but we're very different to any other race in the world. We are the oldest living race. We are a people that carry obligation and expectations, and what we put on our young people and our performers and creatives, so much expectation from the community so that we can be seen, we have a visibility, and people can witness who we actually are rather than just reading the propaganda. And we have such obligation that we can never, ever leave this nation, even if we've gone through massacres, frontier wars, drought, disasters, you name it, mission control, set up like concentration camps, camps on islands like Palm Island, that you were imprisoned. You were paid by the Opium Act of Queensland. Good thing, get you addicted and then send you to Palm Island. And yet we never left. We can't leave. We have to be here to be the stewards for our land, our sky, and our water country. So when our musicians, I'll just use music at the moment, when they write songs, it sometimes has great, it's a healing. When they write songs about their lived experiences and the policy that this country has deemed upon a group of people because they feared our language, really? They feared our dance, really? Okay, there's some dancers that could, scare you. But they feared us. But we remained resolute, and we were guided by people in our communities to continue to ask for equity, visibility, and acceptance. And in 2024, it didn't come. So our creatives put their heads down and says, it doesn't matter. We just continue to keep the language alive, tell the stories, etc., etc. And you mentioned Uncle Archie Roach. He was a Bundjalung and a Gunditjmara man. Incredible, incredible story. You all know his story. But when he penned They Took the Children, little would we realise that that song would almost become a national anthem for the stolen generation. Children that were trafficked to labour camps and homes, often never to see their families again. Today it would be considered trafficking. For child labour. Wow. Endorsed by the judiciary, endorsed by teachers, professors, academia, the church, the police. So when you hear lyrics, there is so much depth behind some of those words and the terminology we use without appearing like the angry black.
Well, that's it, and this is the pedestal thing. I think that the narrative I've found for me as an individual, and not always, but at times, is, people want to talk about how hard things have been and, the triumph in spite of it, and that is the case. But my life is incredibly beautiful, and it's always been beautiful. I've had a lot to deal with, but my story is a story of immense positivity and beauty and creation and creativity and not destruction at all. And I would like to say just one thing, just back on the voice, is that I think we live in a time now where performative is the goal and the accepted currency, and it's absolutely disgraceful and disgusting. I think a lot of people voted no, thinking that they were doing the right thing by us. They were told that communities didn't want it, blackfellas didn't want it. Every single community voted yes, and they were absolutely heartbroken when it came on to no. So I'll just say, if there's anything else, and even just every day, just get the fuck off your phone and listen to your heart, because there's a lot of absolute bullshit artists out there, and they don't have an agenda other than just to... The only agenda they have is to shake the jar. There's red ants and there's white ants, and they're okay with each other. And every once in a while, someone shakes the jar and they tear each other apart. They don't care if you're red, they don't care if you're white, they just want you to do that because it feeds the algorithm and it makes them money. And what happens is our elders, our children, number one cause of death within our young people is suicide, you know. So my point behind that is that a lot of people voted no who might have good hearts. But the way we were put up for fodder and the way we were put up for this false, absolute, fictitious culture war that apparently is going on, I know for a fact that my old neighbour would not vote the same way I vote every election. But when I'm away for work and my wife is home with my babies, I know for a fact that that person is going to bring the bins down to help my wife. That is an individual. That's an individual doing something for my family. It's a little thing. This is where we live. This culture war bullshit. It's just performative grandstanding, this Messiah complex horseshit going on. Stop looking around. It's here. It's here. We're on a beautiful place. And there are people that use it to get likes, and there are people that use it to get their endorphins every time they look at their phone that's built by slaves. It's built by fucking slaves. And they go on there and they think they can tell other people how to do things or not do things or complain about things or rile people up on these things that are built by children. It's a fucking disgrace. So let's just be aware of where we are. So on the 7th of October 23, and then the following week, the 14th, the 7th is my mother's birthday. The 7th of October 23 was when it all went to hell over there and up there in Gaza. Absolutely appalling. The 14th of October 23, when that happened, you know, we were just victim to... You look at what's happening in other parts of the world now. It's like WWE wrestling, you know. That's what it is. And it's not actually something that exists or something that matters and something that can do good. It's just performative and it's grandstanding. And anyway, I might be rabbiting on it. I just don't engage. I don't engage with any of it. I say what I say as an individual who happens to be a man, maybe, who happens to be a beautiful father and husband, who happens to be an artist, who happens to be East Aranda, Gorinji, Afghani, Irish, with Chinese Welsh kids.
Yes, and you are a decent man.
Maybe.
You are
the man thing. I don't know.
You are a decent man.
I'm my wife's lover, and I'm my kid's father. Anything other than that, I'm an artist. You know.
An author.
I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch. I did a couple of kids' books that didn't do very well, but anyway.
Own it. You're an author. But I guess too, as an artist, we all know globally, music soothes the soul. It's the thing we need when times are so turbulent. It's the universal language. It connects us all. The rhythm, the lyrics. Read the lyrics before you hear the song, because then it just resonates even more.
But
So
that's
imagine.
that beautiful thing about art as well, though. It's like read the lyrics and know the lyrics, but it can mean it's like the song that I write about, being a heartbroken, my kids have just arrived, so I'll say stuff up, but you know what I mean. and then someone who I've never met before, who, has their first dance at their wedding to it, and it just means everything to them. It's just the song is an individual, and people have different relationships with it. Like you or like me, what I've just said, there will be people that absolutely fiercely disagree with it and will dislike me greatly for it, and that's their right. But there will be people that will. I'm still the same individual, There will be people that will agree with it, it'll resonate. But there will be people where it won't be. They'll be indifferent to it, but that's still the same person. So it's like the song as well, It's I find it so interesting. I love patterns, and I love things piecing together, and you can do that on a microcosmic level in a piece of music, and then you can zoom right out and look at it as an individual, and zoom further out and it's on a record, and zoom further out and it's a part of a moment, and zoom further out and it's you zoom far enough out. There's a picture of Earth from, I think, like Cassini took a photo of Earth from the orbit of Jupiter. Who cares? If you zoom far enough out, and it's all valid and it all exists all at once, and I find it really interesting, and I enjoy it. Yeah.
And music makes us dance. And who hasn't danced to Born in the USA? So I've got to ask you, I remember when they announced you were going to support Bruce Springsteen, and it was like, whoa! Was it a whoa moment for you?
Yeah, definitely. I just made a record. It was the first record I'd done with my label. I'd been fully independent up till then, and I wanted to make some changes. I was working with some people. I mentioned Scott earlier, and our manager at the time, and that had run its course, and I wanted to do things a bit differently to what I had been doing them, and it was pretty scary. I hadn't written anything for a long time as well. I was in a real rut. And I learnt in an instant, once I made some changes, is that if I'm comfortable, then that's not good, And that doesn't mean happy, if I'm happy. It just means if I'm doing something that I know works artistically, then I don't really get much out of it. It runs its course, basically. And so changing things up, and I haven't been in a rut since from an artistic standpoint, which is good. So there were a lot of changes. There was big charts, made some, I think, like top 5 charting, and a lot of big changes in my career, and that was sort of a part of that moment. And yeah, it was exciting. I met him briefly. He was very generous, but I didn't humbug him. And I met Stevie Van Zandt, the guitar player, and I was a big fan of Sopranos. He's in Sopranos as well, and so that was pretty cool. We got in an elevator together, which is really awkward, But I said hello and got a photo with him before the elevator, and then we got in the elevator together. It was like, yeah, have a good show, man. Yeah, or something. Damn it, have a good show, man. What do you say? So it was exciting. It was an exciting time. Yeah.
Because I can imagine we were really excited because we're going, half that audience that'll go possibly had not heard your album.
Yeah, a bit more than half, I'd say. Yeah. a lot of people in the audience. Yeah.
How did you feel the response was when you came out?
Oh, it was fine. It was good. They didn't dislike it. They were very, very, very respectful and polite. But we were all there to see Bruce Springsteen. So that's how. That was fine. But no one was telling us to get off stage or anything like that. So I think that's a win. When they've spent, however many hundreds of dollars on tickets, But yeah, no, it was good.
I can only imagine. I didn't get any free comps, couldn't afford it. Anyway, it's another story. No, I'm joking. You mentioned The Sopranos and that incredible, score that was with The Sopranos. But as you're saying it, I'm going, oh, that's right. Dan's also an actor.
See, this is like the writer thing. I mean, I was in a great film. I don't know if I was very good in it, though. So.
Does anyone know what the film was? See?
Oh, yeah, I mean, they know.
Was he okay in it?
The thing is, when you ask a question like that and only a few people clap, it would have been better just not to ask. It's like when you're playing... no. It's like when you're playing a concert and you start a song that a couple of people know, and there's like a splattering of claps. Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's awkward. I'm on at 8 o'clock tonight as well, so just remember that.
And what you're talking about The Sopranos, and I took a look at you because you really are incredibly handsome. And I'm looking and I thought, oh my God, imagine an Aboriginal Sopranos and you could be like Marlon Brando's. Well, that wasn't Sopranos, but, you know, you could play that role.
I don't think I could, but thank you. I could maybe for a photo shoot, maybe, and maybe, 15 years ago, but yeah.
Would you ever consider doing other acting?
Oh, look, I would, but no one else has considered it since. So I did go on one audition for an animation after Brand New Day, and then I just didn't hear anything back, and it felt very unnatural for me, and it felt awkward, and again, artistically, if you're doing something that's out of your depth, then it's exciting, and it's not that every time you do that something great's going to happen, but when something great happens, it's you are usually doing that sort of thing, doing something out of your depth, and but yeah, I don't know. I was not. I didn't feel particularly confident with it, and I don't know if I'll ever get another call up. I mean, Brand New Day was 2008. We were filming that, and it came out in 2009. I don't know what the usual time span is between your first movie and your next call up. Maybe it's 15 years. I don't know. Maybe it's 16 years. Yeah.
Well, you know the guy that was in, oh my gosh, something bad. Breaking Bad. He was in his 40s before he got his first lead role. So...
I'm not really... I don't really want to do it, though.
Okay.
But I appreciate the support and the encouragement. But it's not something that I'm not... I wasn't sitting around going, where are the offers, If something was to present itself, I'd definitely have a think about it. But no, it's not. I'm not too worried about it.
Well, I've got to say, you mentioned afterwards there was a graphic thing, a digital opportunity, and you didn't feel quite.
Well, yeah. It was an animation. It was a film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I just got to mention, just because of the R&R, but one of the big industries in the creative sectors that is just powering on a global scale is Comic-Con. Does everyone know? Yeah, of course you do. There were a few. So it's the graphics. It's like the old comics, but bringing them back on a digital platform. The leading companies in this country just happen to be led by R&R people. And post-COVID, office space got really expensive, and, you need all those monitors and everything. And so they relocated their offices to Alice Springs, and it just blows my mind. They're working on stuff in Hollywood, all over the world. So the Canadians are leading, Indigenous Canadians are leading in that sort of animation, not the digital space. The Māori are really leading in gamer material, and we're really leading in the Comic Con arena. And so there's two companies in Mbantua, Alice Springs, that are working globally. So when you see all that other material about Alice Springs, just keep in mind there are such incredible young Arrernte people who are working at a global level. Yes. We've got the wind up to go to questions. Anything you want to add before we go to questions?
No, not really. But, feel free to ask whatever you want. I might not answer everything, but you're okay to ask. Ask whatever you want. I might not answer. I'm not answering that, but yeah.
So we have Hillary with a mic. If you'd like to put up your hand if you would like to ask Dan a question.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for being you. I just wanted to know that you're connected to all the people around the world, but you've probably got a whole bunch of brothers and sisters doing amazing stuff too. What's happening in your because family is family, you know. What's the rest of the family up to? Are you inspiring them to do gigs and rest of it?
Yeah, I mean we're family, obviously, and we're proud of each other. My mother is an artist, and she does incredible work. My brother is an artist too. He doesn't really work in the art space, but he's very clever, and he's building a lot of big things in Victoria with all the development that's going on down there. And my father's newly retired, and he was a criminal lawyer for years, and he also worked at Native Title Tribunal, and he also became a town planner in his 50s. So yeah, everyone keeps busy. Yeah.
And young Emran Sultan is a great artist. I bet he's probably a cousin.
Emran, yeah. And there's also more extended family. Like my cousin Marley is an incredible artist she lives in Coopapedi. My cousin Danielle is the South Australian Voice to Parliament. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of things from a lot of different places, you know. Yeah. In my family and in other families. Yeah.
Would you consider writing a musical if the right story came to you?
Yeah, I'd consider it. Yeah, I've talked about an idea with a couple of friends of mine. We haven't done anything with it. But
how do we get in contact with you?
Oh, well, no. That's... I said, you're happy to ask anything you want, but I might not answer you. It's like, I don't know. Now I'm writing a musical. No. You can get in contact on social media and stuff like that. There's all sort of links to management and all that kind of stuff. But I would think about it, you know. Not right now, but I'd think about it.
As a white fella carrying the DNA from no doubt, the colonial invasion, and recognising and being very sad for what I've lost in not being able to connect with the richness of your culture, and in a community where we fought for the yes vote so hard, and I feel so much for what you must have felt seeing that rejection, and yet feeling so inadequate to share that, in a way, inadequate in sharing that pain. But so I want you to know how many people, I come from Northern Rivers, from the Bundjalung country, and how many people there are that have felt like, perhaps like me, feeling inadequate to connect to the richness of the culture, but work and come to things like this, and Rhoda has helped, I know, me and my friends connect in that way. chink by chink, perhaps. So I'll leave it at that, but I want you to know how much strong that feeling is for the yes vote.
Can I touch on, with the Bundjalung territories, the day that, look, we knew it was going to be a no, but I personally, I felt that I had let my grandparents, my parents and ancestors down because I had assumed that we didn't need to do as much work because we live in an area that became known as a culture, alternative society area. So I should have got out there and we should have talked more and given the reasonings, but we didn't. So I feel I failed my community because I didn't really think that we needed to educate, and how wrong we were, because 70% of the Northern Rivers voted no. We do not want to hear you, we do not want to see you, and basically shut up. But we're not gonna, so it's okay.
I think in an area like that, progressive area, there were people that were lied to. And this is sort of what I spoke about before. Not everyone, there was a huge racist no, don't get me wrong, but there was what they called the progressive no, and they were lied to. And
they believed.
It was really sad. And this is what I speak about before with, the heart. You're an individual. Thank you for your words. It's worth me saying that I have trouble connecting as well. I know where I'm from, and I know where my kids are from, and they're going to grow up knowing where they're from. I grew up I went to school in North Melbourne. I grew up in Fitzroy, and I have a strong connection to that place. I was born in East Melbourne. That river knows me, and that country knows me. And I have a very strong connection. I've been through ceremony there, and I've been through ceremony here. I've been through ceremony on your country, and everywhere I've been on this continent. But yeah, it's this is the flow on and the continual policy that we sort of speak about. It's not. There are some things that are really hard and not very nice, and then there are some things like in Patois, where I'm from. You speak about these companies operating on a global level who are, amazing. They're not amazing because they're Aboriginal. They're amazing because they're talented and they're hardworking, and they're given an opportunity, as anyone else would be given.
And thank you very much for your question. And again, there were many people across our community like yourself that were pushing that yes vote. And I really thank you, because I saw I went to the voting booth, and we live in redneck, area. And there were a white couple, probably the same age as me, in their 60s. And oh my gosh, we came out, they were being pushed aside, and they were just standing there in their yes t-shirts. And they'd been there all day, it was hot, they were amazing. And I just went up and gave them a hug. And the wife burst into tears because she was being abused, and she'd never been abused like that. So in a way, it had a good effect that she actually saw that voice of that community and was a bit shocked by it. But thank you, because there were many allies who were there beside us.
Just before we ask the next question, how many other people here felt what our gentleman here actually said?
Well, thanks. I'd like to, if it's all right moving forward, I'd like to leave that topic now, if that's all right. I appreciate what you've said, and I appreciate people raising their hands. And I don't begrudge anyone who didn't raise their hand. It's none of my business. But I think, I feel like I've covered it. I got to play a show tonight,
All right.
I'll get on to something completely different. I do remember you in Brand New Day and the
Bloody
scene.
gorgeous.
Yeah, and
I look at it and I'm just
were.
go, wow,
And
jeez.
the scene.
I didn't know either. Years later, I look back and I go, if only I'd have known.
But you did know, because there's
I
that
didn't.
scene as you're about to go into or out of the hall and you pass by a mirror and you have to look into it and slick your hair back. Was that improv? And what does that
Yeah.
say if it was?
Well, it was, yeah. And it says
Well
that I
done.
had some level of understanding.
Thank you.
But yeah, looking back, how can you fully know? No, it was an amazing time. It was 8 weeks up there, and beautiful. It was in the build-up. It was in October, November, hot,
Where did you
humid,
film?
incredible. Right near Divers in Broome, and at Divers, and also that was mostly where my stuff was. Also out on the mangroves, the old shack out on the mangroves near the supermarket. Yeah. No, it was incredible.
Not too hard to take, 8 weeks in Broome.
No,
I
it
could
was
do that.
good. It was great.
Hi, huge
Hello.
fan. So my name is Jacob. Family heritage is German and Gudajamara Naranjiri. I actually do a lot of work in bush food.
All the G's.
All the G's.
Yeah.
So we're working with Uchirarionga and Lurachi and Pitjantjatjara mobs and all that out in Central Australia. My question to you is, for the next generation, like working in bush food, working in music, is it just a holistic sort of approach, or is like, how do we encourage or how do you build? Like, I was shocked when I went out to Central Australia and realised how bilingual some of the schools were. And
Trilingual, yeah.
Trilingual,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you do it?
How do you do it? Like, what's
Look,
the
I
next
don't know.
sort of...
I don't know. There are people like yourself who would know a lot more than I do. So what I do as someone who is able to be here and speak to people like you is I mention people like King's Narrative, who you might have come across, who do incredible work. Children's Ground, who are here at the festival as well. I don't know if anyone's here today, who I've worked with a lot, and it's my family. You know, it's not a nepo thing. They are really good. You know, it's not nepotism. Well, it might be, but that's all right. One will up. And also the Go Foundation, run by Mickey O, Michael O'Loughlin, and Adam Goods, and a lot of really great people as well. So that's what I do. I speak about them, who are on the ground and they are working and making things beautiful. So King's Narrative, for instance, I'm sure you already know, it's a program for young boys and men, and it's making bush medicine, bush foods. It starts in culture. They monetize it. They make products. They sell products. They get their message out there. And you know, there's a narrative about our men that we're dangerous, and there are a lot of dangerous men. You know, absolutely. But there's this particular narrative with us where it's the dangerous black man. It's the scary black man, and you know, they're taking a lot of these young people and showing them their culture and making beautiful things, and basically they're making the world a better place. So to answer your question, I don't know what to do, you know, but I know that I know people that do and that are doing it. So what I can do is when I sing that song that becomes someone's wedding song or something like that, and it's years later and I'm sitting here in a tent, I can speak about, you know, King's Narrative. And then there's Children's Ground, which, you know, there's a lot of main focuses, but one of the main focuses is school attendance, and which is so low in Central Australia. And they're like, well, the kids obviously don't want to be there, so it's about doing things from a cultural place first, you know, not trying to make the kids fit into a world and a culture that they can't identify with, that they don't see themselves in, and being told that they're wrong for not being able to engage with. It's about starting them in culture and having them learn things from their own people, with their own stories, their own experiences, things that they can acknowledge themselves and see themselves within. And then, you know, it's obviously 2024, it's about to be 2025. You know, the practicalities of being a part of a modern world and a modern society, then those things can come along. And so they do really great work in regards to that with a lot of girls and a lot of boys and, you know, a lot of empowerment and self-determination, you know, through culture. And then there's Adam and Mickey O with Go Foundation and, you know, helping a lot of kids come to some big cities, to be at some pretty prestigious schools which have incredible education programs. It's not going to be for everyone, obviously, but, you know, every year there's a couple of hundred alumni of these kids that have been given this opportunity to have the sorts of education that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have, to then go off and do whatever they want, whether it's, you know, bettering their community directly or just being a success and being, you know, to be a successful young black person is a statement in itself, unfortunately, you know, but it is, you know, so it's, they're powerful things: education, culture, empowerment, and self-determination. You know, so that's they're three three organisations that I love
and
that,
brilliant organisations.
Yep.
We've recognised culture is our advantage. Culture is our control. We will have a cultural economy. That's why we're training up a lot of young people. Raylene Brown with Kungas Can Cook and Mark Olive look at our superfoods. They look at the processing, where it can be grown and harvested. They are so passionate about those superfoods and that they are used by all Australians. And we get rid of that processed material. So good on you, brother. And on that note, a big thank you to Dan. We've run out of time. 8 p.m.
Yeah, 8 p.m.
Do you know the venue?
Yeah, the big one. The Amphi
8
Grande.
p.m. Amphi Grand. We'll see you all there.
I'm also doing a signing right now. And I do have children, and there is a cost of living crisis. So if anyone wants to come and buy a T-shirt, come and say hello. That would be great. Thanks.
I was just standing here and thinking, these guys have a voice. Australia can't keep it quiet. We heard the passion in what you were saying. Rhoda, who is a Woodford legend, she has her own incredible story, but she helps other people tell their stories as well. So